What's up, guys? So, started to get a little bit ahead of myself here, but I bought a new to me 2012 KTM 250 two-stroke, and it ran great when I bought it, but when I went to remove the exhaust, I was swapping out the exhaust for a different one that I have. I looked into the exhaust port and saw this. So this is the old piston that came out of it. Basically what happened was the person that had it before me, I don't know how well you guys can see that, they put the piston in backwards. So they had this side facing the exhaust. This side is supposed to actually face the intake. So where the ring end gap was, it was snagging right here on the exhaust port in the cylinder. Surprisingly, it actually ran great when I bought it, so I was pretty shocked to see anything wrong with it once I opened it up. But figured I'd take this out and rebuild it before something worse happened. The bottom end on that bike is still perfect. I actually sent this cylinder out to Millennium Technologies and got it replated. Right here, I'll try to post a picture in the video, but there was a pretty nasty gouge from the rings. They repaired it and replated it, and it's just like brand new. I got a little bit ahead of myself. I was gonna actually record myself reassembling everything, but so far all I've done is reinstalled the power valve, which is just sits in here underneath this flange. So there's 4 O-rings under here and these 4 bolts, and basically you just use a little bit of silicone between the flange and the cylinder itself and secure it down with these 4 bolts. And then I started installing the power valve gears as well, which super simple. You just pop them in. Obviously you want to lube them up a little bit with some oil or assembly lube. Pop them in, and then I just threw on these retaining plates. That's as far as I've gotten so far. I'll try to keep you guys posted on everything as I go. Next I'm going to install the rest of the power valve components, so the rest of the gears. And then on this side, this is actually the side that the arm for the power valve will come up. So once we get that, I'm going to use this timing tool right here. This is a Tusk timing tool. Basically you just stick this in, and you're using this gap right here. You just stick this in. This sits on top of the cylinder head, or sorry, just the top of the cylinder rather. And this right here is where you're going to catch the bottom of the power valve. So you just kind of stick your finger in here, you move the power valve around. You're just going to lift it up, set this on top of the head, on top of the cylinder, and then you're just going to let the power valve fall right onto this little notch, like so. And that'll be how you're going to want to time this. So that's just basically setting the gears. So once I get all that together, we'll get in further to that. Basically our next step, we're going to be working on the right side. So if this were in the bike, this is the throttle side. Like I said, this is where the actual rod for the power valve from the bottom of the motor will come through. So we're going to be on this side now. Basically, you have this, which just sits right into this gear here and onto here. So you just need to make sure this gear and the power valve itself are pretty much lined up. And when you're putting this on, you just want this gear to be centered in these teeth. So basically you'll have one tooth here and one tooth here on each side. So something like, move that down a little bit. Should look something like that. Okay, and then you're just gonna click this in just like so. So like I said, you'll have this empty tooth and this empty tooth down here so that this can turn. And this is actually what moves the power valve. So from there, you have this piece. And this is basically what the power valve actually, the rod coming from the bottom of the motor actually attaches to, this ball right here. So you're gonna take this washer and you're gonna hit it from the back side like that. And then you're just gonna set that down over the first retaining plate, I guess, if you wanna call it that. The next part you're gonna have is this spring with another stepped washer and an Allen head bolt. And this is basically gonna go in here like this, and I'll show you how to set the spring here in a second. Actually, let me take this back out. Anything I'm throwing in right now, any of these screws, I'm using just blue Loctite, medium strength Loctite on, just to be safe. I wouldn't recommend using any red Loctite because these bolts are kind of small, especially these Torx ones, and you'll probably be able to actually pull the threads out if you use too much. So this is just aluminum that you're going into, so just a little bit of medium is all you need. Back in there. Now basically I'm just going to hand tighten this, and we'll do the spring you can use a spring puller, you know, even just like a flathead screwdriver will probably work. But I'm just gonna snug this, stop dropping shit. I'm just gonna snug this down just a bit, you know, basically just hand tight. I just can't really grab it with that washer in there. All right, so basically with this spring, what you're gonna have, this part, the longer end is gonna rest on top of this and on this ball. What you're gonna need to do is bring the shorter end to the other side of this post. I'm not sure if you guys can actually see that with how the camera is. But basically this part of the spring just needs to come onto this side. So let me see if I'm gonna be able to do this with a flathead or not. If not, I'm gonna have to go find my spring puller. So kind of want this to be a little loose so you can have a little bit of room for the spring to actually move up and down like that. Just put it in a few threads, just enough to hold it. And I'm gonna try this without my spring puller. So if I can just get it over the top here like that. So yeah, this would definitely be easier with a spring puller. I just don't feel like going to look for mine right now, so I'm gonna try to do it this way. And that way, if anybody at home doesn't have a spring puller, you can kind of just do it the way I'm doing it. There we go. Oh, almost. Slipped off a little bit. So what I'm actually gonna do is I'm gonna hold this part down, because that's what's happening, is this is just popping back up. Let's try to work this over the top. Just like that. Alright, so you can do it with a flathead. You do not need a spring puller. So now I'm going to tighten this down before this tries to pop back out. Perfect. And you know, there is torque specs for this. Anytime I'm working with something small like this, I kind of just go by the German torque spec, good and tight. And you know, I'm going to try to hold this and tighten this down. I'm just going to, you know, go a little bit past snug. All right, that's probably pretty good there, especially because, you know, this is a moving part, so you don't want it to be too tight. Well, now that our spring's set, what I'm going to do now is finish installing everything else on this side, and then I'll show you guys how to time the power valve. Same thing as the other side. You're going to have this plate. It's going to go over here and over the gears. And again, you just want to make sure that this is centered and in line with this. And same thing as the other side, you'll have the one tooth on each end that'll basically let you know that it is lined up the way that it needs to be. So just like that. And then on this side, you will have this plate, which is just gonna sit right here. And you're gonna have this longer bolt, which is gonna go in here. And same thing, just gonna use some blue Loctite. This is going to go through here. And you'll have this little short one, which goes right into here and just connects the two plates. And this is actually what's going to control the timing. So tightening of this onto this plate is going to control how much the power valve can actually move. And we're just going to use a little bit of Loctite on here too. And one thing I like to do when I'm assembling top ends or whatever I have, especially with these two strokes, I just like to keep a small, you know, cap full of oil. This is Klotz Super Techniplate. It's pretty good oil. It's not my oil of choice. I actually like Honda HP2. That's just me, fully synthetic. This Klotz oil, this is great oil. But it does have castor oil in it, and castor oil is a great lubricant, but I don't like what it does to power valves. It leaves a pretty good coating of carbon on the power valves, which I don't like. The Honda HP2, basically you can wipe that stuff off with your finger. It stays very, slick. It doesn't create a lot of carbon at all, and I've always had good luck with it. So Honda HP2 and all my bikes, regardless of the make. I put it in Suzuki's, Hondas, KTM's, Yamahas, everything. It's pretty much my favorite two-stroke oil. But this stuff is pretty awesome too, and it smells like banana runts, so you can't beat that. And for some reason I'm having an issue with these threads. There might just be a little bit of gunk left in there. I'll move this out of the way and see if I can get this to thread. For some reason it's not wanting to go in. Oh, okay. They don't give you much thread to work with on this little guy, so just being a little bit stubborn getting it started. I don't want to cross thread it, so there we go. Yeah, there's just a little bit of gunk in the thread still, but we're good to go now. And you don't actually want to tighten this all the way because you need this to be loose so that you can move it for timing, which is what we're going to move on to now. So I'm just going to snug this down. All right, so this is where I'm going to grab this tool. You might hear this referred to as like a deck timing tool or a power valve timing, or it's also referred to as Z measurement. It even says it on here. But like I said, this is all you're doing. You're going to take this tool, stick it in. This is going to sit on the deck of the cylinder, and this is where the power valve is going to land. So what you're going to do is you're just going to move this with your finger until it bottoms out on the bottom of this tool here. So I'm going to push the power valve all the way up, and I'm going to stick this in. I don't know how well you can see that. And you're just going to rest this on top of the deck of the cylinder right here. Then I'm going to move this manually down with my thumb until I see and feel the power valve bottom down onto that little notch. So right about there. And now the way you're going to set the timing is you're going to take this little retainer plate and you're going to push it down right there just until it contacts this plate here, and then you're going to lock it in. So I'm just going to try to do this while I'm holding it to keep it from moving, but I'm going to tighten this first, snug it down, and I'm going to lock this in right here. Try to keep that from moving. And that's it. That's how you time it for the power valve. So now you can double check that again, just to make sure that you have it set properly. You shouldn't feel too much pressure on this when the power valve hits it. So again, you're just going to set that right there on the deck, and you're going to push this down, and it feels pretty good right there. So I think we're good. Yep. Make sure that it doesn't move anymore once I remove this. Perfect. And when you're doing this, you kind of just want to have this notch right on the center of the power valve. The power valve is, you know, moon shaped, so right in the apex, I guess if you want to call it that, of the power valve. So now this is pretty much all ready to go back on. Obviously I got to throw these covers back on, but we'll get to that once we throw on the top end, or throw the top end onto the bike. But yeah, that's it for the power valve. We'll move on to reinstalling all this. Everything else is pretty straightforward if you've ever worked on a motor. But figured I'd document it for you guys in case you have a KTM or you're just curious about the basics of a two-stroke top end rebuild. Thought it'd be kind of cool to document my progress on the bike. I'm gonna move some stuff real quick. My garage is kind of a mess right now. I got a lot going on. A lot of boxes. I just finished a brake job on my truck, and the area that I have this bike in is kind of a mess, but I'll show you what it looks like right now. This is it. It's torn down. Super clean bike. 2012. You know, so it's not brand new, but it's in really, really good shape. Got a pretty good deal on it, so try to throw a picture and maybe a video in at the end of this to show you guys what it looked like before. And yeah, like I said, it actually ran pretty damn good, so I was surprised to find any issues with it, but I'm glad I found it before it got too bad. Top end rebuild is pretty cheap, so would have been a lot cheaper if the cylinder wasn't messed up, but that's another story. So yeah, thanks for watching, guys. I'll keep you guys posted on everything.